Hi, I'm Steve Garrett, and I want to tell you the story about a Rotary Club. No, a club who will go unnamed because the people who are officers and directors and many of the members of the Rotary Club shouldn't be embarrassed by this. But the story is an important story nonetheless. And this is a story about a board of directors meeting that I attended, not as a member of the board of directors, but as a guest to talk about something that was of interest to the board. And during the board meeting, the president said, "We have the financial statements. Does anybody want to make a motion to accept them?" And somebody did, and somebody seconded it. And the president said, "All in favor of accepting the financial statements?" And I said, "Hold it, wait a minute. Can we take time out for just a second? You know, after you make the motion and you second it, there's usually time for discussion." And I'm kind of surprised as I'm looking at the financial statements here that there's a minus $37,000 listed as an asset. Now, I'm kind of new to reading financial statements. I've only been doing it at that time for 35, 40 years. And I'd never seen a minus number as an asset. And I wonder, doesn't anybody on this board of directors question that? And maybe I just don't understand. And so, just as an outsider who's sitting here visiting, can somebody explain to me this minus $37,000 as an asset? Well, a little discussion took place, and the explanation was that's the way President so and so 2 years ago wanted to list it. So they had listed it that way 2 years ago, and each month they just carry it forward as a minus $37,000 as an asset. Well, my question was, how did a minus $37,000 entry get its way onto the statement of financial? My question was, how did minus $37,000 get its way onto the statement of financial positions? Just didn't make sense to me. Well, the story was that the club would had a little bit of a shortfall in paying for lunches and a few other internal expenses, but at the same time they were asking everybody to give money to the Rotary Foundation, and so the club used the money that was put in for the Rotary Foundation to cover their shortfall of income, and that they intended to clear that up sometime in the future. Well, my comment was, A, why is that not a liability? Since you basically have borrowed $37,000 from the Rotary Foundation, that would be a liability. Well, the answer was that that's the way the previous president wanted to list it, because they had taken the money that was supposed to go to the Rotary Foundation and they had used it, so it is an asset. I said, I'm kind of new to this whole thing. I've been an expert witness in financial matters for a long time. And it seems to me that there's only three answers. Well, maybe there's two answers. One of them is just sloppy accounting. Sloppy accounting. And the other answer was some sort of misallocation of resources. Sometimes the word embezzlement comes into play there. I don't know. Which made me very unpopular in the meeting, I guess. People didn't like my comments, but nobody in the meeting could come around to explain how this had happened and why it was realistic or whatchamacallit. Well, needless to say, I didn't stay around to discuss what I had come to discuss. I just left the meeting kind of in disgust. Now, the offshot of the thing was that actually one of the CPAs in the meeting that was in the club called me a day or so later, and he said, "Now you know why none of the CPAs in the club are willing to be the treasurer for the club." I said, "But why don't you CPAs in the club do something about it?" He says, "Well, there's some people that are just kind of hard-headed, and they're hard to deal with. So it's kind of, well, that's what you want to do. Go ahead and do it." Well, a subsequent president came in and said, this is a problem. So we're going to raise money to pay off the Rotary Foundation. But the problem was the people who had given the money previously had probably all taken it as a tax deduction, even though it hadn't gone to the Rotary Foundation. So you couldn't really do a fundraiser and say the money's for the Rotary Foundation, you get to write it off. So they basically had to explain to the membership that they had a little fupa, and the little fupa meant that everybody in the club had to give some money to clear up the fupa. Long-term result was within 2 years, they raised $37,000, paid off the Rotary Foundation. Rotary Foundation is none the wiser for the whole thing. They thought that the giving to the foundation had gone down for 2 years, and now it had been made up over the next 2 years. The other result is that the membership of that club has declined, or did decline, actually still has declined, by about 50%. And I would suggest that the reason that it declined about 50% is a lot of people who were in the club were uncomfortable with the leadership of the club. They were uncomfortable with the way the governing board had governed for a period of time. And so they chose to put their time, treasure, and talent someplace else. Now, I happen to know that of the members who left that club, several of them went to other clubs. So they didn't really leave Rotary, but they left that club. So that's what I call a cautionary tale. Doing what is efficient for the moment may not be a good idea. And I would liken that to one other thing. In all my years as testifying as an expert witness on failure to supervise in financial matters, because that's what I've done in the past years, I seldom see the people who get involved in lawsuits and financial matters for doing wrong and supervising people that do wrong. I seldom see them set out to do wrong. I often see that they set out to solve a short-term problem with a short-term solution, and that short-term solution tends to turn into a nightmare. Or the similar comment would be the thing about once you start to tell a lie, it becomes harder and harder to maintain that lie. So my cautionary tale is follow the rules. Don't take shortcuts. Your financial statements are very important matters, and the ability to understand the financial statements is a very important matter. I'm Steve Garrett. I hope I didn't depress you with this little story, but I hope I caused you to think a little bit about it. Bye.